Hello and welcome to the Animation Communication podcast, your source for discussion about animation, film, fandom, and more. So please join your host, I Love Kim Possible a Lot, or KP, and Lauren Kizich, the Abbey Roadie, for today's discussion. If you like what you hear, please remember to support by giving a like, a follow, as well as subscribing to the main I Love Kim Possible a Lot channel on YouTube. Spread the word and keep being a part of a great community. This episode contains some mild adult language.
Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of Animation Communication, where it's a kind of behind the scenes episode / get your shit together episode, essentially. Volunteering for a group project or any group project, so I did something, or we're doing something that we don't usually do, and having team members from Team KP / whatever I decide to rename it, if I'm going to rename it, maybe, I don't know, talking about why they do shit for me, essentially, so, and not just because I ask. So before I talk about that, Lauren, tell me about that one, the one story that we have today.
Yeah, because there's only so much we can report within a couple days here, but, because of the timeliness of this, it's already made headlines that Tuca and Birdie, which was it was on Netflix originally, animated series on Netflix, adult animated series, I should say too. It got axed after one season, and everybody was kind of pissed off about that. But then they got news that they were greenlit for a season 2, but they were being picked up on Adult Swim. And so a trailer pretty much dropped, well, I should say a teaser dropped for the new season, which is coming out in 2021. And it actually showcases a new art style for the show. So it's actually not art style, but animation style, I should say. If you watch Tuca and Birdie on Netflix, it was mostly kind of like a puppet animation. It was 2D, but it was puppet animation. This one is looking to be more frame by frame, which is actually really cool to see. And it seems more in tune with what you would see on Adult Swim, especially from like independent creators, which is really cool. So here's hoping that season 2 is really good. It's very exciting.
Is it a BoJack spinoff or just like stylized like BoJack?
It's stylized like BoJack. It's not related to BoJack, even though it's a world that also has anthropomorphic animals in it.
Yeah, that's what I was confused about when I saw trailers. I've never seen it before, but I just know, like, I was like, oh, I guess they're just doing that now because BoJack is gonna end soon because they got the staff basically got in a fight with Netflix about, I think, union rights, something like that. So, and then Netflix is like, fuck you, and they're like, well, fuck you too, Netflix, and that's why there was only like season 6 of BoJack. Because I guess that the crew thought, like, everyone loves BoJack. We have, like, a 99% on Rotten Tomatoes. It will be fine. But, the man is the man, so.
Yeah, so everyone's really excited that because the teaser just dropped for that, I think it's, like, overnight, to show the new animation style. And it looks really good. So, yeah, let's see how that goes. It's supposed to be it's almost like BoJack, but a lot lighter in tone. So it'd be a lot more of like a lot more fun and a lot less existential dread.
Yeah, that was my big turn off from watching BoJack originally because everyone's just like, you're just gonna get depressed watching it. And but I watched it like right after I moved to LA, which I think was good timing because it's set in like not technically LA because the wood in the Hollywood falls down, so it's Hollywood. I don't know. It's a stupid joke, but anyway, that's I thought it was interesting to see like things like the what's the thing, Lauren, that the Stargazer thing in the park?
Oh, Griffith Observatory, yeah.
Yeah, that the Rebel Without a Cause place. So they had that in BoJack, and LA has like a lot of like obscure landmarks. I feel like everyone knows the Hollywood sign. Griffith Park is probably ish because of again, Rebel Without a Cause, but what?
And La La Land.
In La La Land, yeah, that's true. The scene where they're dancing in the park is Griffith Park. There we go. We'll do.
I know it's a little bit of a tongue twister.
We'll do LA history some other time when I don't miss it as much. But anyway, we're getting off track. We're getting off topic. So, with me today, are two of the team members, two of the senior team members. Ola is the head editor / he does PR HR if needed. So that's if someone is having a hard time and they need help and they don't need to talk to me, because I think something I've noticed throughout the years is people are intimidated to tell me things because I'm the channel head, and like I don't know if they like the channel, or if they like the channel anyway before joining the team, then they hold me higher for some reason in their head, and they don't want to personally disappoint me. So, but at the end of the day, I just want people to be like honest, and I don't really care as long as people are honest and they commit to what they agree to commit to. So, and then I also have Matt, who's been on the team for like ever, essentially, and he is an artist on the team / animator, depending on the need. So he does both. So Ola, why don't you go first? We'll go Ola on Matt, I guess. So tell me about yourself and your background, like why you like film and why you decided to join the team, and why are you working for free? Don't you know you should be paid for your work?
Oh, wow. Well, it all started when I was born. I've actually been interested in like film making like my whole life. Even like as a kid, I tried to make like stupid short films, but it was really like in middle school I started getting into editing. It's actually quite a funny story when it comes to that. I actually had like this photography class in middle school, and then one of our project was making like a short film, and then I just realized, oh wow, this is way more fun than actually taking photography, even though my group didn't get to create a short film because we couldn't get along. But it was really in high school I got to know Premiere, and I actually studied and I guess majored in, as you would say in America, in film photography and graphic design and journalism. I'm now currently studying film theory in college or uni or whatever you call it, wherever you come from. And I decided to join the team originally because, well, honestly, I think I joined the team the same way a lot of the people on the team actually joined. I originally applied for Josh Gorch's channel, like a lot of the other editors. And I didn't get the job, but then I just got an email from this team that was just like, hey, we saw you applied for Josh, and we were wondering if you wanted to apply for us instead. And the email made it really clear that this was a non-profit channel and that it would be volunteer work. But I thought this would be a great opportunity to like get to know other people like me and get more experience in editing. And just improve my skills and everything, and I feel like it worked. And to be honest, I feel like I also sort of joined because I thought that it might be a gateway into eventually actually getting a job, editor's job for Josh. Not to sound too cocky, but I honestly do believe that if I applied for Josh now, he would probably accept me as an editor, but I've had opportunities to apply for Josh, but I've chosen not to because I really like being on this team a lot because we're just such a great community. We're like a little family, we're all great friends, and that's why I stayed. I came for the experience, and I stayed for the people.
So would you say you love KP a lot?
I love Team KP a lot.
You messed it up. Okay. Well, anyway, okay, so Matt, why don't you, like, because you were one of the ones that, like, got in through the back way, and I usually don't do back way entries for the team, like, ever, but you can tell the story of how you got into art or how, like, you ended up in the basement forever.
What got me into it? It's a bit of a long story because it wasn't originally what I was going to get into. I mean, I've always been a bit of a doodler since I was, like, in little school. I always liked doing it. I always used to scribble in books and, like books I shouldn't have. And some books I wish I hadn't because they'd probably be worth a lot more nowadays. But it had always been there. But my main focus was always writing. I'd been writing since I was a very young kid. Never really learnt how to do it properly. So I'm very self-taught. In fact, even with art, I'm pretty much self-taught. It wasn't until I was in college and I was doing a film and television production course that I kind of really got into anime. I'd been into anime for a few years, but I didn't know what anime was until college. It was like I was always watching these British releases of anime, but I didn't know what it was. It was like, oh, wow, this is a brilliant style. I quite like it. And it wasn't until college that I met an anime fan that he told me what anime was. And I was like, oh, yeah, I know this style. So he was drawing it a lot, and it kind of inspired me to draw a lot. And because of doing a lot of storyboarding for our projects, as well as the writing, it kind of got me more into the mood. I really started wanting to draw that. And with my friend at the time, we started to make a couple of comics. We came up with a few ideas while we were still studying film and television. But it never really went anywhere. And after college, but I still had a love for making comics. And while I was looking for work in the industry, I just decided, right, I'm going to keep up my skills by trying to make comics, keep working those storyboards. And it kind of went from there. I started working on DeviantArt. I started putting out fan comics, doing fan drawings. They weren't very good, but I was self-teaching myself, and I always wanted to go into animation. I even wrote to Marvel Comics once, and so I got this idea for a comic book, and they sent this letter back saying, they don't take things from random people, which was fine. It was a very nice letdown, but it bolstered me wanting to carry on. One day I was with my girlfriend at the time. She introduced me to My Little Pony, and I quite enjoyed it, and I started watching reviewers, and I remember watching a KP video, and the ponies that she was using, the OC at the time, they were good, but they just seemed quite rough. Like the lines weren't always the same size. So I kind of offered my services to KP in remaking them. I thought I could make some simple ones for you, and she said yes. And I was just going to do the original, it was 12 or 15 images that she had, and I redid those, and I thought, you know what, I could just very simply move the eyes, make the mouths different, kind of have the same eyes but the different mouths. So in the end, when I said, right, I've got these images for you, and you said, okay, send them along, and I just basically sent her 400 to 500 different images. I said, look, this is for every situation. And she was like, oh my God, it's this is a lot. And so after I'd done that, you continued to ask, if I wanted to do some more. And and that's kind of how I joined the team, and I've been doing art for it ever since. And then I started doing bits of animation here and there. I started giving her these little animations. I think the first one I gave her was the Final Fantasy pony one that I did, and then the team ran with it, and they did a brilliant job of my original rough idea. And it's been great that I've had the opportunity to do more animation. It's helped me develop my animation, helped me practice a lot more, and it's given me the experience that I really needed to do stuff.
So Ola, why don't you tell me what skills you use for the team, and why you specifically enjoy the collaboration process versus just doing stuff on your own?
I mean, the skills I usually use for the team are obviously like all my skills in Premiere. I always try to use all the knowledge I have in Premiere to do like the unique things every video.
What is tell people what Premiere is?
Premiere is an editing software made by Adobe, where you can do very basic effects, but you can also animate different PNGs or vectors, and it's mostly used for cutting clips together, and then when you are done with that, you usually put that stuff into After Effects to do more complicated effects in the video. And After Effects is another editing software which is not as good for cutting, but is really good for creating more complicated animations and effects in videos. For example, if you want to do a cool 3D effect with some text, it's best to do this in After Effects. And that's also why it is called After Effects. And a lot of the time during our video editing, we also have to use Photoshop. I have a lot of Photoshop experience. There's a lot of different things we can do with Photoshop. Often we use it to create gags. But the most common use for Photoshop is usually just removing the background of images, so we can use that as a vector in the video, or maybe for a gag, or maybe even just for the thumbnail. And we also obviously use Photoshop for the thumbnail. And if you need me to explain what Photoshop is, it kind of says itself, but it's a photo editing software. But it's a more complicated photo editing software where you can do it seems like almost endless things with the program.
Like I said, I think the biggest thing you guys use Photoshop for is just removing the background. So, like, if you're looking at, like, a square picture, there's, like, a character and there might be a background. So, like, it's removing the background so you can just take the character and put it basically wherever on screen just by itself, I guess is the easiest way to describe it. Photoshop is also used for drawing, which we'll talk about some other time. But,
that is true.
Yeah. A lot of, like...
I am not the correct person to talk about drawing, however. I actually am planning to try to learn how to use both Photoshop and After Effects to actually try to animate different old paintings and stuff. I found this really cool tutorial on YouTube that I'm really going to start studying and try to do that. So I might do some cool effects with that in the future.
Yeah.
Where we can make paintings move if I get the hang of it.
Yay, we can do Harry Potter jokes now.
Yeah. And obviously we also use Audition to edit the audio, which for this podcast is mostly just a bunch of cutting and sometimes effects, but we try to use as little effects as possible. But on the more complicated videos, we try to obviously cut it, but we also try to remove inhales and pops and clicks, as KP calls them, which we then have to do more complicated effects and sometimes actually just zoom really close onto the timeline and remove them manually.
My tools, I do a lot of traditional stuff, but for like the team, I use a lot of digital equipment. At the moment, I've got a UG HK 1560, I think, a tablet to draw on, and I use a variety of programs. For just plain drawing, I tend to use Paint Tool Psi, because it gives me a lot of those nice, clean, smooth lines. Because I use a laptop. It's a very simple laptop. It's not the best, but it works for my needs. And Paint Tool Psi works great with it. But I do use a lot of the Adobe programs. I got Photoshop CS6 I'm currently using, which I use for a lot of effects if I need to do them, or if I want to do frame by frame traditional animating, I use the animator tool that's in there. It's a bit awkward, but I've learned to work with it. I also use Flash, but it's a very complicated program to get the effects you wanted. It's very good for animating, and sometimes what I do is I animate first in Flash, so I can get the timing, I can get the look right, because I can use the onion skin, which allows me to very quickly look between the different frames, rather on Photoshop, where I have to kind of either change the opacity or I have to flick between the different frames in the timeline. That can make it complicated and very long-winded, but it's also very good for very quick GIFs and stuff, because exporting in Flash, I still haven't got that down. I don't know what I'm doing wrong, or if I've got like just the wrong settings or something. I've done quite a few of the KP projects in both those programs, and I've also done one animation in Paint Tool Sci, because I knew all the different layers. I basically did it the same way I would do it in Flash, but I just wouldn't have a timeline, because then I would then save it and color it all in Paint Tool Sci, and then export the file into Photoshop, and then kind of do the timeline there. Something you can't do. You can't export to Flash, unfortunately, as far as I know. I mean, you can put in GIFs, but it's very difficult then to edit them. And yeah, I mean, when I do voice recording, I use Audacity. I've got a Blue Yeti microphone, which I'm using to kind of talk to you now, and a voice meter to help. But yeah, I mean, I'm not really sure on how to tell people what to use, because sometimes a program can work better for one person than it does for others. For beginning, I think any program, if you don't have any experience with it, is difficult, and there might be easier programs to use. It's more a case of try it and see how it goes. I mean, I'm self-taught, so it's easy for me to say I can go into any program and give them time, because that's what I'm used to doing, is going into a program, giving myself time to use it, and then going with it. But yeah, I use Photoshop, Flash, Paint Tool Sci, and Premiere mostly for my artwork and animating.
Okay, so what do you enjoy about the collaboration process in general versus just doing stuff by yourself? Like, what is, not like, I guess, team stuff, but also like what are the pros of just being on the team, or just being on a collaborative team in general?
I guess the teamwork. When I was in college learning, we had to work in a team. You couldn't just do anything by yourself. And when I left college and I started making comics by myself, and I spent a lot of time trying to get the old group together to make films, but everybody started having their own life, and I kind of missed that. So when I started working with Team KP, it was a case of, hey, I'm working with a team again. It took a little getting used to again, because I'd spent a good couple of years working on projects by myself, relying on just myself, and working on a team with the collaboration process. You don't have to put all that stress on yourself, so it lowers the amount you have to do, and you can get something far bigger out of working with people, and faster than you ever could by yourself. I mean, by yourself, you could contain the quality, I think the hardest part of a collab is like making sure everybody knits together. And I think I've said a few times in chats with people that, it's like when we kind of show each other our work, it's like, okay, mine's off model. And I hear that a lot from UKP, that a lot of the characters that I draw are sometimes slightly off model. The hoof was not right. The nose isn't right. And we all got that. And it's like, because I'm an anime artist, we got other people who were like Disney artists, the people who do like Warner Brothers styles, and, all varieties of style is in this team. And it's very hard to turn to somebody and say, okay, this has to be on model, and go against a lot of the grain of your own stuff. And sometimes, we're allowed to do our style for short projects and whatnot. But, it's a bit hard sometimes, but always well worth it, because we are learning to work in a professional setting. You don't go to a studio and say, hey, I'm going to draw this character that's been drawn for 20, 30 years in my own style. The rest of you can say, do it in your style. And you end up with something really different. I mean, there are times where that's done, like with Steven Universe. They've had various versions of Steven Universe within like the same episode, but they're only slightly off. But it's nice to work in that kind of team environment where everybody can then tell you what you're doing wrong and you can improve. I mean, I think I've improved a lot more having worked with the team than I think I ever would have if I'd have just been doing all this myself. And I don't think I would have been I probably would have given up trying to improve or something. I'd probably gone into like just writing novels, which I do anyway, but I probably would have taken that head on rather than trying to improve in a style I never get feedback on. So it's a lot of fun, but sometimes it can be very frustrating if, say, you spent 5 hours trying to draw the perfect pony and then have, say, UKP come along and say, you did it wrong, the eye is wrong, it's too big, and you go like, "Arr!" And you're like, you just kind of want to kind of grab somebody and kind of, have some sort of violence. Not condoning it. But yeah, it can get frustrating when you're collabing with somebody. My friend has a good saying: when you argue with yourself, you'll always win. And if you always win your argument, it's like having yes men. You never improve. But with a collaboration process, you can very easily get frustrated, but you can always come out with something far better. And I always think that is the only thing that matters. As long as you make something great, it shouldn't really matter if you get annoyed or frustrated. It's all a part of the process. Because at the end of the day, you can hold something up and say, I was a part of this, and it looks better than it ever would have if I'd have just done it myself.
Well, there's several pros. I can't really think of any cons.
No money.
Yeah, that's true. But the biggest pros are obviously you get to really learn how to collaborate with other people, and that's really important for your future work, because you're always going to go into work in the future where you have to collaborate with people. That's inevitable, and a lot of times people you don't know but will get to know. And this gave me an opportunity to get the experience in working on a big team with a bunch of people I don't know. And then I eventually started getting to know these people, and that's another benefit of it. I've gotten a lot of friends that it might be lifelong friends, because we're become really close and good friends. As I mentioned in the beginning, we're almost like a little family, and these are people that I love talking to, and I still keep in touch with a lot of people that leave the team. And obviously, probably one of the biggest benefits is the fact that since we are such a big team of people that collaborate with each other, we all have different skill sets, which obviously makes production a bit easier, because some people can be better at doing different things, so it goes faster because they can focus on the thing they're best at. But it also makes it easier to learn new skills, because then the person with a particular skill might teach another person that don't have that skill, and then they both have that skill, and vice versa.
Yeah, I think the other thing is when we can schedule things around things. So usually I overhire people. I say hire, but I usually get more team people than I need, just in case we can schedule around exams. Ola is European, so exam schedules are different from American kids in college. We don't have any high schoolers anymore. I don't do under 18 anymore. That sounds wrong. I don't hire anyone. I don't hire any minors anymore because I've just been burned from that. But so in that way, we can basically plan ahead. So it's slowly becoming less stressful for me to kind of like get a hold of, like, wrangle all these fucking people and be like, Cat, I need things from you, Cat 1, and what about you, Cat 2? So the joke is you're hurting cats anyway. I don't know. So, do you want to add anything, Lauren, since you're on the team kind of too?
Yeah, I suppose I could. I won't be too long. But yeah, I do like being a part of this team, and again, everyone's here to volunteer because they want to be here, you know? It's like, we all want to have like a little outlet of creativity and, you know, kind of just like be able to have a group of people to talk to. And, you know, it's been fun. Even like, I've been working on a little bit of animation stuff here and there, which in my normal day-to-day stuff, I don't usually get to do animation stuff. So it's fun to get to have that little outlet to do that. And, yeah, it's, I love being a part of this team and been on it for a little while, almost a year now, I want to say, almost. Even in the middle of my crazy work schedule, it's nice to be able to have, there's like a constant of like, okay, we got our meetings every week, we got podcasts to record, we kind of got these like little things I can look forward to, you know? So it's good.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I usually don't ask Lauren to do stuff because her main job is co-hosting the podcast with me, and I think I've said in this past, but she has a full-time job, and I have no job right now because Corona. So, I try to like give her space unless like there's something that I think she might enjoy, and then I ask her. So the mini project she's on now, I thought it was something that she would enjoy, which I was correct in, which you'll see relatively soon if it will get done. It's like a little extra thing, I guess. So, you know.
Yeah, it's very close. It's very close.
That's what she said. Anyway, that's something I do a lot too, which people usually don't know unless they know me. And so I think I've ruined everyone on the team though, because now everyone's saying that's what she said jokes, and they're just like, damn it, KP. So, Ola, do you say... Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I even do it, like, not just within the team, I also, like, do it a lot now with my other friends. Like, I'm just in a different Discord chat or just meeting friends in general, and I just say, that's what she said whenever I get an opportunity to make it that's what she said joke. And it's because of you.
I'm corrupting everyone, so, people get frustrated because they're just like, what are you, Michael Scott? And I'm just like, I don't know, it's 2020, I should stop with the that's what she said jokes, but
you got the KP virus.
It's a good way to kind of lighten the mood sometimes and show how immature you really are, so.
As a wise man once said, what's the point of being an adult if you can't be childish sometimes?
Who said that?
The fourth Doctor from Doctor Who.
Okay, that's why I wouldn't know. So, Ola, what has been some of your most ambitious collaboration projects on the team? Because I don't remember, because it all blends together. So,
well, it all actually started when I first joined the team. My first actual project was sort of like an animation thing with the Puppet Pals thing, but that wasn't one major thing. But the second thing I ever got was I had to work on the Is Animation Just for Kids, and I sort of had to take that over from another editor, and that felt like a big collaboration because we basically both edited half and half of that video. And then there's obviously the MLP finale was a huge collaboration between three editors, me, Freddy, and Tifa, which Freddy and Tifa are obviously two other editors on the team. We each edited one part each of the finale review because it was such a big thing.
Yeah, and Kenny did a bit of it too. The montage of all the KP stuff. So, because I've made Kenny watch all the videos on the channel. So if there's something that like is historical that we need to bring up and like flashback to, then I just ask Kenny, because I I usually don't watch the videos after they're out, and I forget about them. So I'll remember stuff that's repetitive, or repetitive jokes. But usually people are like, "What about this thing?" And I'm just like, "I don't know. I believe you."
Yeah, that was actually also an editor called Phoenix Star, I think, also worked a little bit on that video. He did the compilation of Twilight, I think. Twilight Freakouts. I think that was Phoenix Star that did that. He was an editor that was really wasn't a long time on the team, but he did a good job on that collaboration. So it was on that compilation. I mean, so it was a really big collaboration between editors, and it was a lot of fun editing to do. And just working on that finale in general was really fun. Just being over with MOP felt really great, but it's also the fact that that finale was really good in my opinion as well. So I really liked editing that. And
the script or the actual episode?
The script was great too, but the actual episode was also really good, and that comes from someone that isn't the biggest MOP fan ever. For the first time I watched the show was when I joined the team.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. Tell them tell people how you had to reverse Brony to be on the team.
Yeah, so basically, I joined the team about 1.5 years ago. So it was just a few months before the ninth season started. So when I joined the team, I was tasked to finish the whole show before the last season started. And I had, at that point in time, only watched one season many, many years ago when I was young. So I had to watch the whole show all over again. All over again. I had never watched anything else but the first season. But so I had to watch the whole show. And I kind of went a little bit overboard because when I first joined this team, I really wanted to make a good impression. When KP told me that I needed to watch the show, I ended up binging 6 of the seasons in like 6 days. So it's like one season every day. I used a little bit longer on the 7th season. I think I spent a week on the 7th season, but the 6 first seasons I spent like only 6 days on. I was like, I had to make a good impression. It didn't help that also that when I first joined the team, I had to go on a school trip, so I couldn't actually start working on the team the first week I was on the team, so I felt really bad. So I was just like, okay, now I need to watch the whole show real quickly to show that I'm dedicated.
Yeah, so this is why, I'm always, hesitant with new people, because I'm afraid I'm just going to burn them out if I ask them to do something that isn't realistic, and then they don't tell me it's realistic, and then you watch 6 episodes of the horse show in, an unhealthy amount of time. So, it's fun.
Yeah. And my point sort of all with all of this was sort of like, I don't have the emotional attachment that a lot of people have to MLP. I haven't watched it for many years or grown up with it or anything like that. It hasn't shaped me as a person personally, but even still, I really, really liked that finale. I thought that was a really great ending to the show, especially from a pretty, honestly, lackluster season in general, if you ask me. The finale was really great and kind of emotional. I'm not going to go into more details than that.
Oh yeah, you cried, right?
Well, yeah, I had just moved to a new city and I had no friends there, and then I watched a finale about how friendship is magic, and I have no friends where I live at the moment because I'm in a new place where I know no one. I wasn't a good combo.
Oh my god, we broke Ola.
But that does show that the finale was pretty emotional, even for a person that doesn't have the emotional connection to the show. But now we're kind of getting off track. But
yeah,
the point was basically it was a really big collaboration working on that finale. But before we end this question, we can't move on from this question before actually mentioning the biggest collaboration this whole team has done on the time I was on the team. And that is obviously Princess Bride. That was a huge project that we spent maybe a year on. Yeah, more than a year actually.
Yeah,
yeah. It started before I joined the team.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and everyone on the team worked together on that one. The artists, they made, they made the art, obviously, for The Princess Bride. Animators made the fully animated segments, and the editors, they added lighting to the animation, obviously also animated all the scenes in Premiere and After Effects, while also adding lighting effects to the scenes. And every single editor and every single artist and every single animator on the team worked on that project. And while there were a lot of issues throughout production, which obviously such a big project always will have, I think we came out with a pretty good result in the end.
Yeah, I was kind of disappointed because BronyCon is stupid, but they kind of jeopardized the panels because I was vocal about them kind of being dicks, which I will do sometimes because, you know, I'm the no bullshit person essentially. And then they told me I wasn't allowed to be at my own table, which was fine, I guess. So, like, Freddy, like, all the team members that were at BronyCon had to vend for me, and I had to, like, go off and, like, do commissions and then drop them off. And I remember, this is a little off topic, but I remember one time I was at the animator panel doing a commission, and someone had a fucking box of pizza, and they spilled the oil from the pizza on my commission when it was halfway done, and this was like a $50 commission, and he's just like, I'm so sorry, and I'm just like, So it was, I mean, it wasn't that big of a deal. I was in the inking stages of it, so, you know, it's not like I didn't have fucking time. But anyway, so they put all my panels at 1 a.m. and like 12 a.m. and stuff like that. So we did technically air what we had of Princess Bride at BronyCon, but I really think it deserved to be like a spectacle because of it's just how big it is. Like all the art was on model, which basically means it looks the same for the most part. And I don't know. It was a little lackluster how it performed after the fact, and you know, I always think like I'm never gonna do a big project again, and then I'm like, what if we had this idea, and then maybe it'll help the channel, and then it doesn't really do anything.
Yeah, that is such a shame, because I think we all worked really hard on it, and we were all really happy with our work, and we all had fun despite the issues throughout production. We all had, in the end, fun making it. We were glad it was over and done with, and I think all of us were a bit disappointed that it didn't perform better, but in the end we were at least happy with the final product, I think, and it did also make us all become a bit closer to each other, because we had to obviously collaborate a lot throughout that time. Which I also just remembered, I forgot to mention something really important. We obviously also have to give credit to Thomas, who was on the podcast a few weeks ago, for the amazing soundtrack he did for Princess Bride, and all the other amazing music is done. Especially the music is done for the channel trailer. That I love that music he made for the channel trailer.
Yeah, Thomas is the real MVP.
I was going to say that kind of segues into another question that I have, which is what were some of the challenges, or what are some of the challenges of collaborating as everybody on the team kind of works from abroad and is not always in the same place?
Well, the obvious one is communication is key. Communication is very important, and it isn't always the easiest to get in touch with people, but due to different time zones, and so sometimes people are scared to say that they might not reach the deadline because they're afraid to disappoint people and stuff, and that might lead to them ignoring us. But I feel like the team has improved a lot with keeping in touch with each other when it comes to that. But I think communication is the biggest issue. It's obviously also internet connection. It might also be a big issue, because obviously when we work all over the world. We need to upload our work onto the internet, and if you have a slow internet speed and upload speed and stuff, it might take a while to upload stuff. Like, for example, Freddy, he's a great editor, but he has really awful internet, so it takes a long time for his videos and stuff to be uploaded onto the internet, and the Screenlight, which is the website we use to give feedback on, which might be an issue at times, especially if the final deadline is coming close.
What about you, Matt?
Every project I ever start is ambitious for me, and they kind of start off or fade out because I either take too much on or I, overestimate my skill. Every time I try to start, I try to do something that I've never done before, or something that I've started but never finished. Like with animation, just taking on the prospect of animating is ambitious to me because I'm doing a lot of it by myself for my private work. And with the same with comics, because I'm doing it myself, it's a lot of time, it's a lot of pressure, and it's very difficult. I mean, the most ambitious project I think I've got at the moment is somebody's asked me to animate a music video for them. It's not gotten very far because I'm very busy, but I'm actually making a music video to music. It's like a 3-minute track, and there's a lot of stuff going on there. It's actually animating proper people as well, which I've never really done before. I'm usually using characters that already exist that have a lot of reference that I can look at. So animating people whose designs I have to create is very ambitious. And then there's all the stuff that I do for KP, which has been very ambitious in itself because I've never done a lot of the stuff that she asks of us before, but it's been great fun. And I think trying to take on something that's ambitious is very worth it. And there are times where it can make me feel that maybe I'm pushing myself too far, but I just keep trying. And when you push past it and you finish it, you get that great sense of accomplishment. And as I said earlier, everything I do is kind of ambitious. So every time I finish something, I'm quite relieved, both because it's finished and I can move on to something else, but also that I've got a finished project that's something I can give and show people. So yeah, I don't know what else to say.
Great, Matt. Okay, and then I guess we can all answer this together because we've all been on the team for like at least a little bit. But the last question I wanted to address before we tell people like what advice. Well, it is the last question. Is kind of like what advice / like how to organize the team. So we'll do the organization first as far as how we manage things and what has worked and what hasn't worked. So I guess I'll go first and you guys can jump in if there's something I forget. So the biggest thing I think if you, the listener, wants to do a collaboration with people that aren't you, is coming up with a good concept, or a concept that you're happy with, that you're happy to pitch to people, that you like. You know, if you're doing this as a one-off project and not like a team, like I don't think anyone makes really. I mean, Josh kind of, because I kind of helped him with his business model a little bit. But in general, I don't think anyone makes content this way, but it helps me reduce a lot of my stress because, as you guys know, I have a lot of mental health problems, and it makes my life complicated. So, and then outsourcing some of this stuff can kind of make it better by getting all the feedback, because if I was just making content by myself, I don't think I would enjoy the process as much, because I can like write a script and just kind of see what happens with it versus like knowing what's going to happen with it. And then I don't know what that sound is, but anyway, cut that. But anyway, Okay, so I think the first thing, besides getting a script together, and if you're doing this as a collaboration, like long-term or short-term, that's a word, is being clear with your expectations for people. I find that if you're clear about things from the get-go, then it leads to less miscommunication. So things that I would recommend, and again, guys, feel free to jump in, is making sure you have an instant messaging system in place. So we use Discord, Skype is fine, Facebook Messenger is fine, I guess. Like, whatever you want to use, and make sure people are checking that, like, relatively daily, depending on the project. So that way you can get a hold of people, especially when you're not in the same place. So like I've always said, we don't have a physical Team KP office, so I can't, like, knock on Ola's office door and say, "Hey, Ola, how's your work going? Can I help you? Can I look over your shoulder?" Like, I can't physically check if he's doing shit because he's in Europe. So, you have to communicate. You have to show that you're making progress. And then just have...
If you could have those papers on my desk by Monday, that would be great.
Give me those pictures of Spider-Man.
Sandra made a meme of that at some point.
And I think the other thing is just, having a plan is really important, having firm deadlines, because, and then, making sure people are honest with you if something comes up, so you can tell who's procrastinating on their work if you're managing the team. So, like, get in a group, say, "Hey, we're gonna get, like, what do you want your deadline to be for this?" And, like, breaking it down and, seeing how they work. And if someone isn't committing to the deadline, then you pull them to the side. It's like, "Hey, buddy, do you still want to do this? Because I can, you're kind of falling behind a little bit." And they're just like, "Oh, geez, Rick, I'm not sure." So, I think that's my general, like, and then also, feel comfortable with the people you're working with, which has been somewhat problematic for me, not so much lately, but just in general, because of how badly I've been burned from people that are just like, KP's a monster, So, but I think, there's a lot of people on the team that were there for that, if you know what I'm referring to, essentially. And a lot of people were just like, just take your time. We're fine. We're cool. We'll just chill while you go to lots of therapy. So, I don't know. I think those are all my tips. Do you guys have any other tips? Or any like feedback as far as like how to make the collaboration process like work?
Well, I've noticed a lot of people, especially new people, are really scared of actually going directly to other people on the team and asking them a question about something they don't understand. Either if they, for example, get feedback from us and they don't really understand the feedback, they're often afraid to ask what you meant, and then they tend to just ignore that specific feedback because they didn't understand it. Or there's just one specific thing when it comes to editing, for example, that they don't know how to do. And instead of asking if anyone on the team knows how to do it, they just don't. And it will either lead to their videos being delayed or them trying for a really long time, trying to figure out how to do it themselves. And maybe they do finally do it themselves, but it leads to a lot of delays through that, obviously. And I think then it's really important to make sure that the people on the team are comfortable with going to each other and being aware that and you don't need to be ashamed to go to someone else on the team and tell them you don't know how to do this specific thing, because obviously you can't do everything. You're not a master at everything. And by going to other people and asking for help with this thing, you can eventually someday be good at doing this thing. And so I've been trying to work really hard to like make sure that people are aware that they can always go to me and ask for help if there's something they need help with. And that there's nothing to be ashamed of when it comes to that. And obviously, if I don't know the answer to that thing either, I also tend to direct them to someone I know knows the answer, and try to make sure that they know that no one on the team will judge them if they don't know how to do a specific thing.
Matt, you got anything to add in terms of advice?
I think I've kind of covered this before. The biggest advice that I could give is make sure you're online at specific times, because communication is key. Unless it's something like, okay, you got this job to do that. And then you don't need to talk to them, except for like, okay, I'll talk to you on Tuesday. You give me what you got, and then I'll give feedback. That's kind of fine. There's a lot of trust as well that needs to be done. If you can't trust that somebody's going to get something done, it kind of makes you wary. I think if it's between friends, then you kind of trust that they're going to get it done, and sometimes you can give them leeway. KP, you kind of give a lot of people a lot of chances and a lot of leeway when they're stressed or they're behind, because you know that we're doing this for free. I think if you were kind of like super kind of, hey, you got to get this done now or you're fired, you'd probably lose a lot of people. So thankfully you haven't gone that direction. It's collaboration. It's not working for. That you have to kind of make sure you understand that definition of the word. You're working with people. It's very good to be precise and clear on what you want. If you're like heading the collaboration, you have to be concise on what you're expecting from people, what you want them to do. So clear. So again, it always comes down to communication. It's, communicate with your team, understand them, tell them what you want in a very clear, concise way. Even if it's a problem, like, you don't know how to draw something, or you don't feel that you're getting it right, communicate that. There's nothing worse in a collaborated project than relying on somebody, and then when their deadline's due, they turn to you and say, I didn't do it because I got scared, or I didn't know how to do it, so I was doing a lot of research. When you could have told them that, and they could have said, okay, this is what I want it to look like. Research. Here it is. It's very simple, and often saves a lot of time by getting people who know what they want from you to be more clear on what the objective is. And I think roles are a good thing. Like, if you want somebody to do something specific, then they should just do that specific thing, rather than having them do a dozen jobs and like they're only really good at one, or there's stuff that other people can be doing. It's just a case of, like I said, communication. You have to kind of know who you're working with, what they can do, how fast they can do it, how clear the instructions are, clear on what you want from them, and being quick to the reply, or at least, if not quick, routine with it. So yeah, my saying again, I know I keep repeating myself, but best advice I can give is, when you collaborate, remember communication. Make sure you know everything and be very clear.
And I think the other thing is just, having a plan is really important, having firm deadlines, because, and then, making sure people are honest with you if something comes up, so you can tell who's procrastinating on their work if you're managing the team. So, like, get in a group, say, hey, we're gonna get, like, what do you want your deadline to be for this? And, like, breaking it down and, seeing how they work. And if someone isn't committing to the deadline, then you pull them to the side. It's like, hey, buddy, do you still want to do this? Because I can, you're kind of falling behind a little bit. And they're just like, geez, Rick, I'm not sure. So also an environment that will actually be used for something, because, we talk a lot about art and animation, and there's a lot of art and animation kids out there, or people in general, not just kids, who are practicing their animation or practicing their art, and then it just sits in their portfolio and, never to see the light of day, essentially, besides just being in their portfolio. But, like, for something like this, and if you're planning a collaboration, just keep this in mind, so portfolio is just basically showing off your skills to, like, other people that might hire you or whatever. It helps show credibility that you actually can do the thing that you're saying you can do and not just telling people, which is a problem. A lot of times people are like, I can do that thing, and I'm like, prove it, and they're just like, oh, snap. So, help, portfolios help. But, like, having a team project around it actually is, like, say you do a painting or you do, like, like some sort of editing thing, it will actually be used to entertain, or as a piece for entertaining other people and as a backdrop for something. So not only can you say, oh, I made this pretty background, but oh, I made this pretty background, and then it was used for a shot for an animation done by another person. So it also shows that, you are willing to be on the team or are willing to be on a team. And I think that's what a lot of hiring manager persons are looking for, is just people that are just relatively easy to work with, and regardless if it's internet projects or not, and people, like, because I know I can be nitpicky with my feedback, but people that will be dependable and not flake, and also not get mad at you when you give them a million notes, because it will happen. I'm trying to think, is there anything else you think, guys, or anything you want to add?
There was something I was planning to add, but I forgot what it was. Damn it. Oh yeah, now I remember something I was going to add. It was really just something to add, like another good reason for doing this like stuff for free is obviously like, I know this wasn't relevant to this question, but that previous question, like the good reason why is we're willing to do this for free is also it's really good to have on your resume that you've been working really hard on all this stuff for free, because like if you show that on your resume to someone in the future when you're looking for a job and they see, oh, you did all this stuff for free, then obviously how hard will this person work for me? I at least think that's how they're gonna react. Yeah,
I mean, not that you have to work for free. That's everyone's individual choice based on the time and or skills they have. But a lot of people make exceptions for group projects like this because of the advantages about, learning different skills and stuff like that. So, I'm always touchy about, because the internet is very much like, don't work for exposure, and I've made a video about it, and, I think we need to have a deeper conversation about working for free depending on the environment you're working for, and not just shutting people down when they're willing to work for free. Because, I love this team, and we all work really hard, and I get really frustrated, especially when people dismiss not only me, but the team members, because they think, oh, they're just too stupid to work for money. And I'm just like, no, you dum-dums. And, that's insulting their intelligence, and, you don't know these people, what they're personally getting out of it, and you don't ask, I make a big point in the fan server that all the team members are in the fan server, and you can ask team members direct questions, so we're not hiding anything. I secretly don't have Ola, microchip to work for me or anything like that, that he knows of. But that was my joke.
Ola.exe stopped working. I just wanted to point out the fact that also, I don't think anyone on this team actually works for exposure, because working for exposure is a bullshit thing, and I honestly believe that working for exposure is not a real thing at all, because in reality, no one gives a damn about who actually works behind the scenes. Have you ever watched a movie and watched the credits and be like, oh yeah, so that person made the props? No, you don't. The reason why we don't work on this team to become famous or something like that. We don't work so people will see us in the credit. We work for this team because we want the experience, we think it's fun, and obviously it's also the whole family dynamic of the team where we are really close friends.
I make everyone do Secret Santa every year. And we were actually planning a Disneyland trip before the coronavirus. So
Yeah, that was sad.
Because Lauren and I can just drive, and everyone's like, I'm going to come to Europe to go to Disneyland and California land. So, But yeah, and I don't think a lot of the team members like have that, or people aren't really paying attention to the team members. I think they just like to throw shade. Granted, it's not as much of a problem anymore, really, but it always like grinds my gears a little bit when people just sort of like, like, you don't pay people, and like there's other YouTubers that are just like, you should pay people, and they find ways to dismiss me because of how I operate. But I'm just like, dude, it's not like I haven't thought about this, and stop being a douchebag. So that's the end of the podcast, everyone. No,
like the only form of sort of exposure you could get out of this is with your personal friends, where they ask you what you're doing. You can be like, yeah, I work. You flex on your friends, being like, yeah, I work for this YouTuber with over 100,000 subscribers. Or when strangers ask you, oh, what do you do in your free time? And you're just like, oh, I'm going to flex a bit. I work for this YouTuber with over 100,000 subscribers. That's the closest you can get to sort of like actually sort of big exposure. And that's not sort of like a thing. That's not the reason why we work on the team. I don't think people usually like flex that either. I think claiming that we are stupid idiots that work for exposure and are getting manipulated is stupid, because we chose to be on this team not for exposure or for money, but for experience and friendship is magic. Not the show, but the fact that friendship is actually magic.
Okay, I think this was a pretty good episode for general collaboration. So, to round off, essentially, if you want to do an internet collaboration, just make sure you have a good foundation for your shit. So make sure that you have deadlines, you have a general idea in mind, you know how the process works. So like, writing a script, if you're going to do animation, like, how do the programs work on a general level, stuff like that. So breaking that stuff down and presenting it to people, and, again, always don't take it personally if people won't do stuff for free, because a lot of people have been burned by like fan projects that don't get done. And I remember when Lauren was like, we were starting the podcast and starting to record stuff, she's just like, I don't want to, is this actually like, I don't want to waste time if this isn't going to get done. And I'm like, bitch, I'm KP. My projects always get done, even if I hate them. So that's a joke.
I mean, the podcast did have sort of a rough start to begin with, but as soon as we really like got all the basics done, the podcast has been going really, really smoothly every week. I feel like.
So I think it speaks a lot if you can do like a simple video or a simple edit with HitFilm, because HitFilm's free. Just showing people what you can do and that you're putting in the time, because I like, especially working for free. Especially if you're a younger child, like if you're like in 14 or 15, it will help go a long way, so people don't feel like they're donating their time for something that won't happen, essentially. So that's why I don't do lines for people anymore when people ask, because I'm just like, I'm tired of giving lines for things that never get done. So, like, give me some credibility and then I'll think about it. But any other points that you guys want to add for internet collaboration?
I mean, to add on to the point you just said, as you said, your KP, your project always gets done. I don't think there's ever been like, at least in my time during the team, there's never really been a project that we've started working on that there hasn't been, in the end there weren't anything done with it. I think every time, even if it's been delayed, it's always been finished. And even if another editor have to take over, the editor that previously worked on it will get credit for what they worked on. So things always get done and people always get credit for what they have done.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. Again, just finding ways to establish your credibility by doing small things before you start pitching your shit goes a long way to make people feel more comfortable. That like, oh, okay, well, they actually kind of know what they're doing, so I'm not going to waste all my time doing this thing that never happens. And, I feel bad because there were so many fan projects, especially in Pony, where they were like, we're going to make the first fan-made movie. We're going to make the first Fallout Equestria short. you're gonna do all this stuff. And I'm just like, no, you're not. Like, why are you getting panels for things that you won't do? No, you're not. So, and then I ended up being right about most of that. So, not to toot my own horn, but, I'm very proud that I'm able to get the shit done. So, essentially. So make sure you get your shit done in research and stuff. Okay, Lauren, do you have anything to add before we wrap?
Nope. I think you nailed all the stuff I would have brought up, so.
For some reason, I just started imagining Pinky and the Brain creating a panel at a convention about how they're going to take over the world. Because you're talking about stuff they say they're going to do, but it's never going to be done.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what it is, essentially. So, anyway, any closing thoughts, Matt?
Yeah, it was great being on. Sorry about blabbering on and not being very clear, I think. I never think I'm clear anyway, but, thanks for having me on. It's been great fun.
Thanks, Matt. What about you, Ola?
Subscribe to I Love Kim Possible a lot. It is a good channel because I edit the videos and that makes it good. And KP is cool too, I guess.
I mean, I try. So anyway, make sure you subscribe to the main channel if you're new. We put out podcasts every week on all your favorite platforms that you'll probably hear again in the outro, but I'm saying it again for repetition because I'm boring. Join the fan server. It's cool. I'm trying to get people to give feedback about your own creative ideas. So if you need like a place to go that is just like, I want to do this thing, how do's, and Ola will be like, you're doing it wrong, and then Ola will get sad because you're doing it wrong.
Did you think I was the coolest person you have ever heard? Then go to the fan server and you might be able to interact with me in person. Well, not in person, but through voice chats.
Essentially, if that's your game. So I think we're good. So see you next week on Animation Kimmunication.
Thanks for joining us, guys.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to Animation Kimmunication on YouTube, Spotify, or your favorite podcast provider. We are really hoping this show makes a difference in how people view animation and media, as well as giving and providing advice for people all over the world who like or want to join the animation or media industry. If you liked what you heard, please remember to subscribe and rate those 5 stars, as well as tell your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to our main YouTube channel, I Love Kim Possible a Lot, and turn those notifications on. My name is Scribbler, and you have been listening to Animation Kimmunication.